Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
What is happening, Rush Nation? We are back. We are back for the Week 3 Waiver Wire. Lots of interesting close games on Sunday. We're starting to get a picture for who the good teams are in the NFL and who are the teams that are going to struggle this year. And we're also getting a lot of injuries here at the quarterback position. Joe Burrow, we might see him at the end of the season. We might not. Jaden Daniels is questionable. Justin Fields is in the concussion protocol. We've already lost Brock Purdy, so we've got quite a few quarterback injuries already stacking up. So let's get into the waiver wire. Let's start to tackle where we're going to be this week. And there's quite a few different places that you can go at the quarterback position this week, both at 1 QB and the 2 QB leagues that you're in. For me, the top ad is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is very much looking like a QB1 for the rest of the season. And he has taken the Colts, who were predicted to be in contention for the first overall pick, to 2-0. And we're really in a good spot in past 300 yards last week. And he's really starting to show, with the rushing ability he's always had, with that passing ability, that with good coaching with Shane Steichen, there's an opportunity for him to put up very, very decent fantasy numbers. And he is a player that I'd be looking to add in a number of different formats, especially if I have lost a quarterback this week and I'm needing to add someone. But he's averaging 6.5 rushing attempts every game so far through the 2 games. So that floor is really, really nice. Adding to that what he's doing in the passing game, he very much is a very, very good ad option this week for a lot of teams. I think for me, especially if you're QB needy and others are QB needy, you're going to need to spend probably $5. I never normally in a 1 QB league would spend that much for a QB, but I think this is a unique opportunity to do so. I think if you're really desperate, you can go up to as high as like $8, $9. If you're being a bit more cautious, you can go and spend in like the $3 range, but I wouldn't do that. I'd be spending $5, $6. Make sure you get him in a 2 QB league. You're going to need to spend a lot more. He's going to have to be a good 20% of your fab because he's going to bring fantasy numbers every single week. So he's going to cost a lot more in that range. If he is not there, or you just are not feeling that, then there's a couple of other quarterbacks you can add. Michael Penix Jr. He is 41% owned, so owned a lot more than the 17% that Daniel Jones is. And again, it's definitely been really solid in terms of Penix's performance. And again, we didn't see loads this week, but you didn't need to. You know, the Vikings didn't offer anything on offense. So yes, whilst we saw Penix, 13 for 21 for 135 yards, it's not a great stat line. The Vikings are a really good defense, and more importantly, they offered nothing on O. They just kept the ball on the ground and did what they had to do. But he showed it against the Buccaneers that he can pass on good defenses as well. And now he's got Carolina coming up. So I think you're looking at the next couple of weeks. If you're looking at that short-term bridge for a Daniels, a Fields, or a Purdy, then Penix might be your guy because with Carolina this week, he's going to have the Commanders after that. There's 2 opportunities there for him to stack good performances. And in that short-term option, I'm not sure in a 1 QB league I'm having him for a long-term option, but for a 2-week, 3-week option, I think he's in the bye week 5, so you're looking at him purely a 2-week option. So I'm not spending as much, $2, $3. I don't think there's huge competition for him based on this week's stat line. So I don't think you need to spend a lot to go and grab him. If you're a bit more desperate, do go up from that number, but that's about where I am. Matt Stafford's the next one, 27% owned. He has got Philly next, then Indianapolis, and then San Francisco. So he's going to be in situations where he's going to need to pass more and more. And he's going to struggle to get into those top 12 ranges, but you're looking at a 15, 16 QB 15, QB 16 kind of range is where he's going to be the next 2 weeks. And if that's just going to keep you in weeks, you've got a good team, you just need a quarterback to come in, then, Matthew Stafford is a really safe pair of hands that you can just bring in. You're not going to get that high ceiling again. We saw against the Titans, 240. We saw a decent week against them, but again, the Titans are not particularly great. And then we saw some opportunities in the red zone didn't really get going. And they weren't as clinical in the red zone as perhaps we would like. And I think that's where the ceiling is starting to go down for him. But I think what you're going to see in the coming weeks with Stafford is you're going to see these games stack up. I've already mentioned Philly, Indianapolis, San Francisco. He's going to have the Ravens in there as well. So they're going to have to pass more. They're going to be in game scripts where they're going to need to throw the ball more. And that, makes him an attractive pickup and with that stability, but there's just a lack of the ceiling, I think, there. He might have the odd top 12 week, but it's going to be a bit of a struggle there. Sam Darnold is the next one. So with Sam Darnold, it's hard maybe off some of the performances we've seen, especially week one, but Sam Darnold is definitely, when you're looking at his completion percentage over expected, he's in that top half. He's in top 10 for yards per attempt. He's definitely going to he's definitely going to give you this sort of fantasy outcome where there is a ceiling play there for him. And I definitely like him more than, say, Geno Smith, who we talked about on the show last week, and Jake Browning, and maybe even if you're chasing a ceiling play, maybe more than Matt Stafford. I still probably have Daniel Jones and Michael Penix probably above him. But again, I do think that having Sam Darnold with his performance this week, again, as he gets more comfortable in that offense, he's going to be a good add to have. He's only 27% owned. So again, there's a good opportunity to grab him off waiver wires as well. And then again, he's going to have one I'll be spending $2 on, $3 on, wouldn't be going too crazy on. Now, one that we are definitely looking at in Superflex leagues is Jake Browning. He's not owned anywhere, 0% owned. He's got Minnesota, Denver, Detroit, and with the cap situation there, people are talking about Cousins going to come in. They can't afford Cousins. That's a non-starter unless they shut down Joe Burrow for the entire season. That's not going to happen. So yes, people are saying, oh, can they go for Winston? They could. Why would they? If they wanted him that badly as a third QB, they would have signed him because he was a free agent. So at the end of the day, you've got Jake Browning there. They've kept him on the roster. He has been there. He has done reasonably okay on that roster. He was there in 2023 when he missed time. And back in those days, Browning was a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 6 of his 7 starts to finish the season. So you're starting to see there is some trust there. And he had a good week last week when he came in. Took some time to get going, but once he got going, he did a pretty good job. The worry may be more how he leans on Jamar Chase when those two work together. Chase's numbers really hit a floor. I think he was down to 4 or 5 catches a game around about 60, 65 yards. 1 touchdown. We weren't getting those ceiling plays. And I think if you're a Chase owner, you're probably the bigger loser than actually the Burrow owner in some regards when it comes to that situation. So again, I think Browning in a Superflex league is going to have that great opportunity for you to start. He's definitely going to be in the top 24 quarterbacks on a weekly basis. He's going to be a mid-level QB2 most of the way. Wouldn't have him in the 1 QB league. Maybe if you're stashing him as a need play, worried about more injuries coming if you've lost 2 quarterbacks. Maybe I see it. He'll have some good weeks, but I can't imagine there's too many times you'll want to be starting Jake Browning over any of the names I've kind of mentioned. And the last is Geno Smith. He is out there. He's 30% owned. I'm just not in on Geno. Don't think it was a good performance last night. And again, I think there is some games coming up. We've got Washington, Chicago, and Indianapolis that kind of just give you a little bit of hope. I mean, he did throw for 362 yards, but as I said on the show on Thursday, that's a Geno Smith game. Like, he just doesn't connect too much in the end zone, and that's going to be his limitation. So he's kind of at the bottom of the pile for me at that position. Moving on to the running backs, and there is some interesting positions, but we've probably got to start with the injury to Austin Eckler. So he is out for the season. So you're now going to have to look at Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez was a sit, and so as a result, you've got to look at he was a healthy scratch on Thursday Night Football. So, you have to look at that and say McNichols is maybe a little bit ahead of him. But we've seen it in the past where the situation has come about where there has been a lack of running back. You have to look at that and say that Rodriguez is the one that does jump into the larger role. I think the way this offense is going to work is Bill Krosky-Merritt's going to get the majority of it. Rodriguez is going to be the backup. And Jeremy McNichols is going to be that sort of receiving back, getting an increase of role. I'm not going too crazy on either of these. This could steer Krosky-Merritt into a potential sort of bell cow role. But they've got the Raiders, they've got Atlanta, and they've got the Chargers next. And I think when I look at those games, I think Atlanta, there's opportunities to run on them potentially. The Raiders, there absolutely is, and that might be a game where Rodriguez and McNichols might get a bit more of a ceiling. Atlanta, I think there's opportunities there. The Chargers might be the one where that game is a little bit difficult. What their value is going to be, I think people are going to overbid. So I'm not going too crazy. If I had to sort of stake out who I really want from this team, it would probably be McNichols. I think there's a little bit more upside. So, for me, I'd be spending $2 to $4 on McNichols. I probably wouldn't be spending more than $2 on Rodriguez. Even though he's the backup, I just think his ceiling is completely limited. He becomes effectively a handcuff, but with no real fantasy appeal. So I'm a bit out on him while we wait there. Other running backs you could look at, Tyler Algier, 30% owned. He's got Carolina, Washington, and then the bye. And, he's going to always have this sort of fantasy value where he's going to be a low-end flex play. And he's just always going to be that sort of RB 35-ish, RB 35 to RB 48 range. But he's then the handcuff. So he has value as a result if something happens to Bijan. So he's worth a couple of dollars for sure. And then early buy gets that out of the way. There is some opportunity here, especially in these next two games. Against Carolina in particular, there's an opportunity here where if they get up and they are up against Carolina, who look woeful for the most part, then you've got this opportunity here where he could come in and just they could rest Bijan. So that might be an opportunity there. Against Washington, that opportunity shrinks a little bit. Kenneth Gainwell, he has usurped Caleb Johnson in this backfield. He's 8% owned, and he's definitely the one who's getting a bit more of a sort of playing time ahead of Caleb Johnson. Then Caleb Johnson had that horrific muff that then went for a touchdown. That's going to not earn him any stripes in Pittsburgh. So Kenneth Gainwell becomes an interesting ad. Again, he's more of a sort of stash play. I'm not going crazy on him. I think you can get him for $2. It is a bit short there in terms of these sort of plays out there. The one I'm probably looking to add over anyone really at the running back position is probably Woody Marks. Now, I'm starting to see Woody Marks get some playing time. He looked pretty solid last night. He had a big 37-yard run catch and run against the Buccaneers. And he's starting to see more and more sort of usage. It is starting to trend up. It's still not huge. He played 12% of the snaps in week one. That moved up to 27%. He ran routes on just 9% of the team's dropbacks in week one, and that rate jumped to 28% in week two. And again, I think what you're starting to see here is that Woody Marks is a very good receiver. He was one of the best sort of receivers in his class. He's not going to be one that I'm looking to add him immediately to my lineups, but he is someone that I would be looking to have and stash away, waiting for that breakout. And we know what happens with Nick Chubb. He does get on the end of a tackle, on the end of an injury. And if he is injured and there is no Joe Mixon for a long period of time, it is going to be Woody Marks. It will be the Woody Marks show. So for me, I'm looking at top ads this week. Woody Marks is probably my top ad because he's got the ceiling potential with good flexibility, because I just don't think they're going to run 30 times a game with Nick Chubb. I think Woody Marks, the escalation is getting there. It's not at the point where you can put him in a lineup, but Woody Marks is the guy I'm looking to add in most places this week. Another couple of players I'd be looking to add, Tajay Spears. He is still on IR. He was probably my favorite sort of draft. Draft in the last round before a kicker, stash him on IR, take my kicker off free agency, and just have him there on benches. Tony Pollard is getting a significant amount of work. He's going to burn through, and I just think they're calling out for more playmakers there in Tennessee, and Tajay Spears is definitely going to be one of those. And keep an eye on Kyle Monangai. He's another one I'd be keeping an eye on. He's someone that is starting to get more work, and it's someone that Ben Johnson is calling out. DeAndre Swift has never really got that huge upside ability. There's always a threat to his job somewhere, wherever he is. We saw 7 carries from Monangai last week. Again, not one that I've been looking to get into a lineup, but second half of the season, I think that's that opportunity. Grab him now. All these players you can grab for free or $1, not having to spend big money on them, but they're players that I'd be looking to add and add at a rate of knots, really, to really make advantage of that. I look at the wide receivers now. I talked about him on Thursday, and I said, I'm looking at the peripherals. Here's a player who I think is going to go through the progressions and be a player who we want to watch more and more, and that's Isaac Iomanor. He is 8% owned, and he is really seeing huge increases. He got the touchdown. We're looking at him now, and he has a huge, 25% target share in week 1. 48.5% air yard share, and then you're looking at the growth there. He's starting to get separation. He's starting to win in his routes. If you look at Fantasy Points' stats, and I'm going to do a breakdown on him, everything is leaning towards Iomanor really becoming the true number one, not Calvin Ridley in this offense. All the talk all off season was this guy is special. He runs crisp routes, he separates, he wins, and we're starting to see that translate. That touchdown was a great example of a man who just didn't give up. He was trying to get his QB an option, and Cam Ward makes what I personally think is a dodgy throw across his body, but he believed that his receiver was going to make that catch. That's such a big play to go against something that is so mechanically wrong and fundamentally wrong, but you believe in your guy enough that he's going to be the only guy to get the ball. Is special, and that really encapsulates everything that I think I was trying to say last week on last week's show with Iomanor, and I think he's a player that I would be keeping an eye on significantly. I think you're going to need to pay up for him. I think you're going to need to pay $7 to $10 for him, because I think you're going to look at him and he is going to be a real big playmaker in this league as the weeks go on, as Cam Ward continues to get better and this offense continues to get better. But they're going to trail in a lot of games. They're going to need to throw the ball more. Wan'Dale Robinson's out there, 22% owned still. Again, huge player that in terms of we saw something very unique out of him this week, in the sense of he's always been sort of in the slot guy, never really does a lot. And then all of a sudden you've got this huge sort of air dot that he posted on Sunday, 16.7 air dot, 25% target share. And he is, someone who's always sort of made a living out of these just short passes, etc. Russell Wilson is pushing the field with him. Robinson's had a 25% target share in each of his first 2 games. We're looking at him as a significant option, and he is someone that you're going to need to add in most formats for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Troy Franklin. And, in the offseason, I was a bit more on Mims than Franklin, but Franklin comes with a high draft pick. But we're looking at what he has done. And it really came up. He saw a huge jump in his route participation in week 2, 88% of routes run, which was huge. He saw a 30% target share last week, 24 PPR fantasy points. Everything is trending towards him being the receiver that when they can't get the ball to Cortland Sutton, he's the guy they're going to go to. And that is the direction of travel that we're seeing now. It's not Mims. It's not any of the other receivers they've got there. It is going to be Troy Franklin, and he is starting to operate. We will see what happens with Mims, but I think this is a direction of travel I'm jumping on. You could probably get him for about $5. I'd be looking to spend on that. Cedric Tillman was a guy I talked about on the main show last week. 39% owned. He's got some great matchups against Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, so they're going to be trailing. He is someone that is going to be continually moving forward. I'd like to see the target share go up. It went down a bit, but I have to say that Joe Flacco probably was just panicking a bit on Sunday. He was chasing ghosts, but he's thrown 45 passes in back-to-back games. And so as a result of that, you're going to be seeing 8 to 9 targets a game go Cedric Tillman's way. So he is worth the $4 or $5 that you're going to pay up for him. And then we've got to talk about the situation in Green Bay. And Green Bay, they've lost both their receivers. And I talked about Romeo Doubs, his numbers on the Patreon cast and how they were coming through quite nicely. But I just didn't trust it as much because I wasn't sure what I was going to see out of the passing game when they're spreading the targets. But we now know Jaden Reed for 4 to 6 weeks because he's broken his collarbone. It is going to be Romeo Doubs, I think, in the short term. So through the first 2 games, 17% target share. It's per fantasy points data, by the way. 20.6% first read share, which has always been high when he's on the field. 2.34 targets per route run. And then we're seeing these numbers just become more and more relevant for Romeo Doubs. He is this team's number one right now, but don't discount Dontavian Wicks. So Dontavian Wicks isn't owned much, and I think they're just not up to speed with Matthew Gould. So Romeo Doubs is number one ad. You're probably going to have to pay north of $5 to get Romeo Doubs if he's available. But if he's not, then you can lean on Wicks, and he's going under the radar. Wicks is definitely going to end up getting a lot more work as he continues to pull through. And the peripherals really aren't quite showing up. But if you look at, he's going to be the slot guy there. He ran, according to PFF, 86% of his routes from the slot. That's going to be really important moving forward. No one else was even close to him. And, his route participation is going up 75%, which is solid. So he's going to be around and on the field and making routes and then be available to make plays, which is what you want out of your receivers. So he's someone that you could probably get under the radar, probably just like $2, but he's someone that I would be looking at. And in a deeper league, I'd be adding Jalen Coker. Xavier Legette is not getting it done, whereas at least Coker, when he's healthy, will demand targets. Xavier Legette will not. So stash Coker on your IR spots if you're just desperate for wide receivers. He's going to give you an option there for sure. Tight ends, we talked about a lot of these last week. They were kind of started the show. DeJuan Johnson's still under 50% owned despite everything. And again, he had a huge game in week 2 as well to go with his huge game in week 1. So we're going to just see this over and over again. Top 12 option. He's worth the sort of $6 to $8 you're going to need to pay to get him. He's got Seattle, Buffalo, and New York yet, so plenty of opportunity here. But he is looking to be Spencer Rattler's number one target. Harold Fanning is still out there. Again, saw a bit of a dip in week 2, but with all those numbers that we're seeing, he did increase his snap share and his route share, but his target share was the one that dipped just to 11% from 20%. But I think that will change, especially when they've got Green Bay and Detroit next. There's opportunities that they're going to throw the ball 45 times. There is opportunities there. And then we look at Jatavian Sanders, 2% owned. He's got Atlanta, New England, and Miami left next. So he's going to have opportunities here to stack him up, and no one else is really catching the ball there. He only played 65.8% of snaps, but he ran routes on 69% of Bryce Young's passing attempts, and he had over a 16% target share. That needs to increase. 7 receptions, 54 yards. But the way that the Panthers' defense is so bad, they're going to have to chase games. I think you're going to see Sanders be a sort of a tight end 10 to 12 over the next 3 weeks, especially with these games. So they're ones I'd definitely be looking at. And Chicken Kwanku is out there. His 18.1% target share didn't really relate to the box score, just 4 receptions to 35 yards, but that it will increase more in Tennessee as Cam Ward just gets a little bit better and more comfortable in the office. And Chig Okonkwo is one to watch. I'd probably be ranking these as Johnson, Fanning, Sanders, then Okonkwo. And then if you're looking for a defense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is the one that you've got to be adding this week. They're going to be cheap. They're not necessarily putting the big numbers in the box score, but they're going to be playing Tyrod Taylor this week, more than likely. And also, the Jets are more of a running team, and the Buccaneers are the best sort of running defense in the NFL and have been for quite some time. So I'd be looking at this and really utilizing the Buccaneers defense. If you're still struggling for other options, then the Seattle Seahawks against the Saints this week might be a good option, and the Atlanta Falcons. The one time I think their defense is getting much, much better. They got Carolina this week. This could be a really good option for them. And then I mentioned the Colts last week. Again, you can use them. They have a good matchup as well. All of these I wouldn't be spending sort of significant money on, but you can definitely add them. But that's the waiver wire this week. I hope you found this particularly useful. Good luck in your matchups. Oh, I'm going to add one more stash play to you. And the one more stash play, and I completely forgot to mention this, is Malik Washington. I almost forgot it. I had it on the bottom of my sheet, and then I kind of missed it. So Malik Washington is the last guy I'd be adding this week. Now, I think you can get him for $0. I don't think you need to submit a claim for him unless you've got others in your league that listen to this. I've been looking more and more at Miami. I've been looking at through all the different peripherals, and I mentioned this in the Discord, so please do join the Discord. The link is below. And I mentioned this to our Patreons, and you can join that. Link is below. Just a couple of dollars a month. You get access to me in our WhatsApp chat, so you can basically just get hold of me like almost whenever you want, and I'll pick it up. But Malik Washington is going to be the guy. If there's all these issues with Tyreek Hill, if there's he quits, he gets traded, the league issues, the domestic violence stuff, all of that stuff, it's not going to be Waddle that's going to overtake that role or demand a greater target share because he's a very unique player with a unique skill set. They're going to need someone to sort of have that deep threat speedster style. And that's Washington. Washington is going to fill that in completely. If you look at what he did in college, if you look at like his speed score, spark score, and the sort of type of receiver, he's almost like for Tyreek Hill. So I'd be adding Malik Washington to sort of all my deeper leagues where I've got the opportunity to add him. In fact, I went through and did all that on Sunday in leagues he was available. So I'd be looking to add him. If something happens to Tyreek Hill, you effectively are getting the Tyreek Hill replacement now, getting him for free. So add him as a deep stash play. But that's going to do it, Rush Nation. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday with the flagship show. Me and Danny. Tune in for that. Tune in for the NFL Boys tonight. And if you want to get some sort of deeper analysis and deeper stash plays and why these players are stash plays and get some advanced analytics stuff, join our Patreon, a couple of dollars a month. Hit the link below. You'll get access to Patreon cast, access to the chat. We're going to win a lot of leagues together. And all our patrons do really well every year winning leagues. So if you want to stash in with them, join in. But until then, Rush Nation, we'll see you on Thursday. Don't forget, as always, keep rushing.